I am a professor here in psychology, and I also have the pleasure of being the Faculty Association President at Pasadena City College. So it is my honor to welcome you all here tonight. First of all, I'd like to thank Mary Ann Crook, Christina Ercoli, and Victor Interiano, without whom this evening tonight would not be possible. We would very much like to thank the candidates for their willingness to participate, and we, even more than that, appreciate your willingness to invest your time and your heart and your treasures and spirit into Pasadena City College. We love it, and we appreciate that you love it enough to do good here as well. So we want to thank you for that. We'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for their willingness to moderate this evening. We really appreciate that. And first of all, we'd like to thank the students who came out tonight, because we know that as a student you have a lot of homework to do, but you're here anyway. We'd like to thank the PCC Board of Trustees who are here, our community members, the staff, administration, and faculty who are here this evening to participate and listen in. And finally, Elena Pierce, who is a student and part of student government, the Vice President of Cultural Diversity, will lead us in the flag salute.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
My name is Yvonne Pine. I have been a longtime member of the League of Women Voters, and I find that participating in these forums is my favorite part of being a League member. I would like you to meet 3 other League members who are here tonight to help us. Our timekeeper down there, would you raise your hand, please, is Dorothy Keene. Who are our question sorters, Sandra Hauge and Patrice Gibson. So, unless you were bribed, and all of you and us have one reason for being here, and that is to keep democracy working. Our democracy includes choosing trustees for your community college board. And being an American citizen, you have the right to choose, which is pretty special, and we must never forget. You obviously do not want to squander that choice. So you are here so you can use it, and if you don't use it, we are in big danger of losing it. So please, please, finish your obligation, which is to find out something and then make that choice. Our country had been practicing democracy for 130 years before men decided that we women could be trusted. It wasn't until 1920 that women in this country were given the right to vote in national elections. California came way before that, by the way, which was a good thing. But in national elections, and since then, the League of Women Voters has been actively working to help voters become informed voters. We are totally nonpartisan. That is, we never, never, never support candidates. But we do take stands on issues. And we also are committed to helping voters make choices about those issues. We have what we call education forums all the time on the elections when it is useful to be able to understand those propositions. I want to assure you, by the way, that we do not discriminate against men, and we invite all of you to consider joining us in our efforts to preserve democracy. So, one of your obligations tonight is to provide questions for our candidates. So, using your outstanding public education, please write clear, concise questions on the cards provided to you and hold them up for some of the students who are along the side. We'll come and get them and bring them to the question sorters. They will be sorted to for relevance, for the same subject, for appropriateness. You can direct your questions to all the candidates. If you insist on asking to only one candidate, I will give the rest of the candidates a choice to answer that if they choose. I guarantee you that personal attacks will not be heard, so don't bother. Candidates will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for closing. The order has been chosen by a drawing, which is not quite true. This is my speech I'm reading, but what we ended up doing, because there are 2 representative districts here, we just put them in their districts. So District 2 and District 4 are seated together, but consider them the members of the same board. And so you will ask questions of everyone. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer a question, and I contend that you will be amazed at how many meaningful words can be crammed into 1 minute. We have a timekeeper who will hold up a paddle to warn you of a time. Would you hold up a paddle? So you and the candidates will be able to see that the time is coming to a close. I would ask you, candidates, to please don't go over. We really tried very hard to be there. And so, in spite of the fact that it's very rude, I will interrupt you if you do go over your time. All right, the other thing I want to tell you is that please, please, please don't waste any time with applause. Sit on your hand if you need to. When we're all done with our little show here, you will have as much time as you need to clap and cheer. I have 2 questions from the Faculty Association that I would like to start with.
First of all, my heart is full of joy at seeing so many faces in the audience. As the beneficiaries of Athenian democracy and Roman law, we are the inheritors of Greco-Roman traditions. You and I form the great bulwark of Western civilization in America. You and I are participating in that stupendous experiment of self-government, representative democracy. You and I have no king to answer to. You and I have no aristocracy to pledge fealty to. You and I are the constituents who serve and who are served. You and I are the electors who choose amongst ourselves to carry forth for the public good. Secondly, I am Martin Enriquez. I give thanks to the PCC Faculty Association and the League of Women Voters for putting on this event, and all who are assembled here at PCC's Western Bank Recital Hall in the Center for the Arts. Thirdly, I, Martin Enriquez, am willing and able to serve as her trustee. I am pure of heart, cooperative by nature, and generous of soul. I have the academic preparation and the past experience in public and private spheres, and a deep understanding of the institutional culture that is the magnificent core of all answers, past, present, and future. I was conceived here in the city of Pasadena. I have lived here for over half a century. I am the third of 5 generations to do so. 3 generations of my family have attended here, our Lancers.
Thank you. Maybe you can include some of your other points in the questions as you're answering them. Next, we will hear from Tom Solinsky.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Faculty Association and the League of Women Voters, everyone who participated in putting this together. As I was thinking about tonight, I was reflecting on my involvement with PCC, and it actually has spanned over 4 decades. First as a student here, and where I was the first to go to college in my family. I ended up attending PCC, getting involved in clubs and student government, and I was fortunate to have involved with the student affairs area with a dean of students that supported this idea to help start a flea market and auction to support scholarships for students here at the college. In that supportive environment, I also experienced observing Walter Shadford, former trustee here, who led with diligence, thoughtfulness, and patience in how he had attempted to help students succeed at college. Upon graduating from PCC, I also stayed connected with the college, got involved with PCC Alumni Association, and worked with a fellow named Lou Krevlin, who many of you may be familiar with. I actually live 1 block away from Lou, which is amazing. And as I was reflecting here, I actually had my wedding reception in the Krevlin Lounge, which, as I was thinking, that was 31 years ago, and my wife hadn't picked me up yet, so I must be doing something okay. I've stayed connected with the college through teaching business classes here at the college and other colleges for over 2 decades. At the same time, running my own business. I volunteered to serve in the business advisory board here at Pasadena City College, and many times as guest speakers in the classroom. So over the years, I've continued my entrepreneurship, my commitment, by starting several companies, rowing 4 nonprofits, and serving as a board member for over 8 years at Pasadena Unified School District. What I'd like to do is bring all that experience together and serve as trustee.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. James Osterling.
Good evening, and also I'd like to reiterate my thanks to the sponsors, but also everybody that came here today. It tells me that you care about our community and PCC. I've been active as a volunteer in our community for over 30 years, but I'm new to campaigning for public office, so if I'm not as slick as those debates you see on TV, please bear with me. So let me please introduce myself. I've been a university professor for over 10 years. I teach finance, real estate, and the planning curriculum at USC, one of the top 5 programs in the country for that expertise. I have an MBA in finance and management from the Kellogg School at Northwestern University, one of the top MBA programs in the country. I started my career as a CPA and as an auditor, and I went on to serve as the Chief Financial Officer for several major Southern California companies. I've overseen annual budgets over $500 million and supervised large, complicated, multi-year construction projects. I do have significant governance experience. I've served with distinction on numerous government, civic, philanthropic, and corporate boards and committees in our community here, many of which that you are familiar with. I would like to bring my talent and my expertise for the benefit of the Pasadena Community College Board of Trustees. As many of you know, there's Pasadena Community College has been in the news, and we've slipped a little bit. I believe with the proper governorship, we can restore Pasadena Community College to the excellent institution that we've always been. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hoyt Hilsman is next.
Thank you. Thank you to the sponsors. And again, my name is Hoyt Hilsman. I'm an author and an educator. My first teaching job was right here at PCC. I also taught at UCLA. I have a law degree and a bachelor's degree from Columbia University, recovering lawyer. I've lived in Pasadena with my wife Nancy for more than 20 years and served on a number of city boards and commissions. I'm also on the advisory board of the California University. So why am I running for PCC board? You know, PCC is a great college and it's a source of pride for the whole community. But in the past few years, there's been real failed leadership here, bad judgment, some poor decisions. And you know as well as I do what they are. I don't have to list them all, but I'm going to give you a couple of them. Hiring of incompetent, divisive presidents, illegal payout to a president when he was fired, potential millions of dollars of lawsuits from canceling winter session, votes of no confidence from the faculty and the Board of Trustees, from the faculty and the student associations. And finally, the worst thing that's happened lately is that the college is put on probation by the Accreditation Commission. And they said that there was a, quote, dysfunctional campus climate where participatory governance is not respected. They cite residual mistrust, unprofessional behavior, and a lack of civility on campus. So what's happened to this institution and who's responsible for it? Well, it's the trustees. They're the ultimate authority on campus. So this is an election when the trustees are elected officials and they need to be accountable to the board for its actions. And this election is about that accountability. We need fresh and engaged leadership so we can sort of repair the damage that's been done and restore the trust both on campus and in the community. The academic standards remain high, but the leadership has been in trouble. We're optimistic about our new leadership with the new president, but we need to work hard. If I'm elected, I'm going to work with the faculty, the students, and the whole administration and the community to assure a great future for PCC. Thank you.
And next we'll hear from Mr. Marshall Lewis.
Thank you. I'd like to also thank the Faculty Association and the League of Women Voters for giving us this wonderful opportunity. I'd like to thank everyone for showing up. Although it seems like I recognized almost everyone in the audience, which makes it harder than you would think. I'd rather you were all random and I couldn't see you. For those of you that don't know, I'm Marshall Lewis. I spent a little over 8 years in the Marine Corps, and after that I decided to start my educational path here at PCC. I am a PCC graduate, also sort of a hard knock graduate from PCC in the sense that I went from a veteran to a civilian here. And that goes into why I really feel passionately about the school. It's given me a lot. PCC has made me who I am today. Currently attending USC, but my heart is still here. During my time at PCC, I've been at every level of everything you can imagine, from student to college assistant. During my time in Associated Students as a student trustee, and even before that, I did everything from lobby committees to every level of shared governance, from calendar committee to college council, as well as my position on the board. I feel like I have a very unique perspective because of this. Not only because I've been at these levels and had experience in these positions, but for any of you that know me, you know that I put myself in the room instead of just waiting for someone to come to me or waiting for someone to do the work for me. For those of you that know me, I do the work. I put the work in. I come to the meetings, whether I'm a voting member or not. And I make sure that I get the actual word firsthand, make sure that I know what's going on. PCC has had some problems in the recent past, and I don't need to tell you what they are. But I also have been on all sides of those. Oh, thank you.
And last but not least in this round, William Thompson.
Well, thank you very much. I've had the honor and the distinction of serving on the PCC Board of Trustees for the past 8 years, along with colleagues like Jen Van and Linda Waugh and others. And I'm very, very pleased with the work that we've done. We have some challenges we will be talking about this evening, to be sure, but we've made a lot of progress. I have an extensive record of community involvement. I served for 16 years on the Pasadena City Council, 2 of those years as the mayor of Pasadena. I've been involved with the Pasadena Educational Foundation for the past 8 years, serving as its president for the past 3 years. PEF, the Pasadena Educational Foundation, has a great working relationship with PUSD. Brian McDonald is superintendent of the schools, and I've had the pleasure of working very effectively with him. I work effectively, honestly, openly with all. Our goal is to improve student success. That's why we're here after all. That's why we're all here. In the real world, I'm an IP intellectual property attorney, actually practicing patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, litigation, licensed to practice in California. A giant in volunteering, as I'll share with you some information out in the lobby as you leave here. One of the distinct pleasures we've had. My wife and I chaired the gala that was held on this campus in May of this year. More than 500 people attended that. We raised more than $1 million in money for scholarships for PCC students. PCC is number 1 in the state of California right now, and the number of associate degrees that we award. We're number 1 in the state of California for minority students, likewise getting those associate degrees. We're 7th in the entire nation in that category. And we have an outstanding veterans program, as Mr. Lewis has alluded to. And I look forward to talking with you more about that as the evening goes on. So thank you.
Now, we'll start with the questions.
Could I ask one of
Yes.
your other questions? I thought we were going to get paddles that were going to help down our timing.
Oh, do you want to,
I
yes,
thought that's what we were going to have.
okay, we can, okay,
I find it helpful
there's
that
been a
my-
request to have a paddle that stops at 30 seconds and then, was that good?
Thank you.
Do you have, you don't have a 45, just 30? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Then Tom Solinsky will be the first one to answer this question. The exits of the two past presidents cost the college and taxpayers nearly $1 million and stained the reputation of the institution. As a trustee, what steps would you take to ensure that such events do not recur?
It's a challenging question that I wasn't part of the current selection process, and I met with President Gridian, and I know we share very many common values and vision for where I'd like to see the college go, and he as well. I think the most important decision any trustee makes is selecting the president and superintendent. And I know through my business and governance experience that leadership sets the tone. I've been involved with selecting several superintendents over the Pasadena Unified School District. And I'm really excited by the selection that we made most recently of Superintendent McDonald and his focus on students and student success.
Mr. Osterling?
The selection of the president for PCC is an extremely important role of the trustees, and I do believe we've done a good job with the current selection from everything that I've heard. But that isn't enough. The role of the trustees is to hire, and if necessary, and it's been necessary, to fire the president. It's also to provide strategic policy direction for the president to then go out and execute. It's not our job to handle the day-to-day affairs of the institution, but it is to make sure that it is headed in the right direction. And also there is a very significant budget that must be established, approved, and monitored, and that budget is an extremely important policy tool as well. Thank you.
Mr. Hilsman?
Yes, well, you know, your question is about the millions of dollars and the payouts that all came. And the very first thing you have to do is obey the law. You can't meet in secret in violation of the Brown Act and expect to get away with it. They didn't get away with it. You can't shut down the winter intersession and in violation of labor contracts and think that you're going to get away with it. So the first thing that the trustees need to do is follow both the letter and the spirit of the law, which hasn't happened so far. The other thing they have to do is take shared governance seriously. Shared governance is the law. AB 1725 says that you have to include faculty, staff, students in these kind of decisions. And part of the importance of the president's job means that you need to have consensus in the community. So that's a way to avoid millions of dollars of payouts. That's a way to avoid the legal problems. And it's also a way to build trust and a consensus and a vision for the future for this campus.
Mr. Lewis?
Just to clarify specifically, that question was about the presidents, correct?
Would you like me to read it again?
Yes.
I'd be glad to. The exits of the two past presidents cost the college and taxpayers nearly $1 million and stained the reputation of the institution. As a trustee, what steps would you take to ensure that such events do not recur?
Well, the policy answer is transparency and a good process. And I think we did a great job this year on the board of creating and evaluating a process that we hadn't done in the past, where myself and other trustees went to the prospective candidates' schools and interviewed their colleagues, their students, their employees, and as well as the candidates themselves. Beyond that, for the past decisions, obviously the problem is a communication and an honesty issue. I believe that it's not enough just to say transparency out loud and use it as a tagline. You have to be transparent. You have to come out of the room and answer the questions. It's not a secret club meeting, and there's nothing we do that we shouldn't be able to avail to the public, and that especially goes 10 times for the presidency. If hindsight's always 20/20, oh, thank you.
Mr. Thompson?
Thank you very much. I would say at the very beginning, I was not involved in the selection of the first president that you've alluded to there. I certainly believe I have a clear-cut record of openness and effectively talking to people, working with people, listening honestly, and considering carefully and thoughtfully what I'm told. It's one thing to talk about transparency, as Mr. Lewis has alluded to. It's something else to be capable and willing and able to carry that out. We did that with respect to the hiring of the current president. As has been said, I think he's off to a very good beginning. Dr. Miller, who preceded him as the interim, did a great job of stepping in and addressing shared governance and other issues on the campus and smoothing things over. And so we're off to a very good beginning. I support Dr. Verdian, and I will continue to do exactly that as he makes his way throughout the campus. And together, collectively, we move on to make this an even greater college than it already is.
Mr. Enriquez?
Initially, I thought, what a waste of money. $400,000. On reflection, I know insurance companies and lawyers push for settlements. Then I thought, it's an okay thing to get rid of that precedent. So now we have Dr. Roger Padilla. It is a good thing. The Public Employees Relations Board said unilateral implementation of the trimester schedule, not good. Brown Act violations. The Brown Act is why I've been able to attend the Council of Academic and Professional Matters, the subcommittee of the Board of Trustees, Budget and Finance. The Pasadena Association.
The second question I have from the Faculty Association is sort of an expansion on this same question, so I'm going to ask it, and Mr. Osterling, you will be first. The college's labor relations strategy in the past several years has led to numerous unfair practice charges against the college and embarrassing and expensive reversals of administration's unilateral and illegal actions. How would the college change its approach? How should the college change its approach to labor relations?
That's an excellent question, and it's a very important one, and it's a very difficult one as well. Labor relations are the key element of any service organization, and an educational institution is a service organization. And our payroll for our faculty and administration is the single biggest budget item. And those relations must be conducted in a transparent manner. The input from the faculty must be heard on all of the issues. Ultimately, though, it is the decision of the Board of Trustees to approve certain things, and but it's important to have input from the faculty, the staff, and the students as they make those deliberations. Thank you.
Mr. Hilsman?
Yes. I grew up on a university campus. My dad was a professor. And I know about university campuses. And hallmarks of an academic and intellectual environment is that there is discourse, there's disagreements, there are different agendas, and these need to be respected. What doesn't work in negotiating with faculty who have their own interests and the interests of students and the campus at heart is that it has to be done with respect. There ought not to be finger pointing and blame, and there also needs to be respect for labor contracts. This is how universities, of course the faculty has a strong hand, and they should. Of course they're going to make arguments for the sake of curriculum, students, and resources. But this is not something that ought to be a matter of blaming. This is something that should be done in seeking a consensus that's for the good of everybody. So I think what's happened on this campus is the discourse is broken down, and it's partly because of the finger point and blame that has gone on in these negotiations.
Go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
I'm going to disagree and say that it's not finger pointing as much as it is communication and making unilateral decisions. I was actually there with some of the faculty members that are in this audience and getting dragged out of board meetings when we were trying to tell the board that they were making a bad decision. Under the advisement of the president, they went against all our work in shared governance committees, all our research that had been done to put winter into effect to begin with. Every wish of, or the overwhelming wish of every student and faculty member at the time, at least the vote showed that. But the big point here is we weren't listened to, we being the students, the faculty, and the staff. And you can't do that. This labor dispute wasn't about not negotiating, it was about not listening, not actually accepting the input and the research, the work that was put in. So if you're going to ask faculty, students, and staff to put in the work in shared governance, you have to accept it.
Mr. Thompson.
Well, I think we need to step back here and look at reality, because if you're talking about the decision to not proceed with the winter intersection, that was due to a state budget that had come down to us and showed we were going to be losing about $10.5 million. At that time, we acted upon that as the budget we were expecting to get, and we made a change. As it turned out that we did not lose that money. Had we known that, had we had the ability to look ahead and know that, we would not have made that decision. So let's look at reality here. You have to negotiate openly, honestly. It's much different than simply living or saying I grew up in this environment, etc. You're there. I've got a record of doing that on the city council. Certainly we negotiated with the police, the firefighters, the different organizations there. I carried that on with PCC. I do it in an open, effective, honest way, and I will continue to do exactly that.
Mr. Enriquez?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question. You want me to read again? The college labor relations strategy in the past several years has led to numerous unfair practice charges filed against the college and embarrassing and expensive reversals of administration's unilateral and illegal actions. How should the college change its approach to labor negotiations?
Since over 80% of the budget is spent on staff, which there needs to be an improvement in that. Much of it is done in committees. Listen to one another, find areas of agreement, but this was more serious. The winter session cancellation, I believe, have to do to get rid of excess students, unfunded ADA. I still don't know all the reasons for it, but the impact was negative. The students were in an uproar. Teachers were dissatisfied. That's not the way to run this place. We have a rich tradition.
Mr. Solinsky?
My experience of living through labor negotiations over the last 8 years on the school board to an environment where we had to reduce the budget 6 out of the 8 years out of a $200 million organization. It was gut-wrenching to have to lay off anyone. I think what I value and I've come to believe that we have to seek a win-win approach, a mutual benefit approach on how we deal with any negotiations. And to me, that does mean, as mentioned before, this openness. And I believe the value that I want to bring is this very deep listening to make sure we have a clear understanding of what our mutual needs are to work to build growing trust in one another.
Thank you. Mr. Hilsman, you'll be next with the first answer to this question. There are several questions about adjunct professors. So I'll ask one of them. How would you make wages and working conditions for adjunct faculty more equitable?
Well, I've worked as an adjunct professor, and I have to say it's very difficult. This is a matter of, obviously, with resources. One of the problems that's happened in college education is the move, as you all know, towards adjuncts. I think the ratio here is about 5 adjuncts per one faculty member. But you don't solve the problem by just shutting down and by just talking about the financial aspect of it. You really have to focus on, again, restoring trust, getting confidence and a consensus going and a vision for the future for the college, and then look out for your adjunct faculty in terms of their welfare and in terms of the academic standards that you want to preserve. So that's.
I feel like I should explain in case some of you don't know what adjunct faculty are, but they do not have the access to college resources the same as the regular faculty does. And they are left out of the shared governance of the college, and it's an adjunct professor. These are the comments from the questions, and I just wanted to add that in case there was some misunderstanding. Mr. Lewis, next.
Thank you. I have a great idea. Hire full-time faculty. Stop hiring vice presidents and managers. Hire full-time faculty. Not to say there's anything wrong with adjuncts, but as a student, as a graduate from here, I'd like to say that there's something to be said for having a professor in their office for office hours, having a professor that doesn't have to run and jump through hoops and go to 3 schools to pay their rent. And it's that simple. Hire full-time faculty. Stop hiring everyone else.
Mr. Thompson, would you like that?
We have tried to address some of the adjunct issues by making offices available and that type of thing, but it is excuse me, a difficult issue to address. We want to be more equitable with them. We are addressing the need to hire more full-time faculty. We've got a lot of vacancies. We're filling those. We're going through the open process to accomplish that, and I think that's the way to go about it. We want to be fair with all of our faculty members, for sure, all of our employees, period. And I think we have a record of doing exactly that. And we try to compensate them fairly. In terms of benefits, we try to address that as best we can. But we're limited, too, in the money we get because most of it comes from the state of California. The other thing, too, we're going to try to do is to give some priority, if we can, to the hiring of adjuncts for full-time positions. They do have the experience here, they know the campus, they know the students, and that's a big plus.
Mr. Enriquez, a question about adjunct professors.
They're very good. They need to be better compensated, more security, and classroom assignments. As I understand it, after 6 semesters and good evaluations throughout, they have priorities for their preferred hours. I think that should continue. And raise their salary, point blank. Because hiring them as a full-time professor is going to be way more expensive. They'll be more loyal to Pasadena City College if their wages are high and have some access to services like retirement planning. Thank you.
Mr. Selinsky.
Thank you. My understanding is that I think by June there's going to be about 400 tenured full-time faculty and a little under 700 adjunct instructors at the college. It's clearly a significant number of individuals. In terms of working conditions, I think there's, I've been an adjunct professor and actually still am over at Glendale Community College coming in the fall. I understand the importance to me of the leadership of the department being effective. I understand the access to resources and being supported. I think priority hiring into full-time positions is a clear issue. And having clear SLOs and evaluations so that adjuncts know where they stand would make it more effective for everyone.
And final one in this round, Mr. Osterling.
Yvonne, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes?
Thank you.
How will you make wages and working conditions for adjunct faculty more equitable?
I am an adjunct faculty at USC, and I'm very proud of the fact that I am very highly rated by my students. It is more challenging. I teach an evening course. I'm not on campus during the daytime. I have to make special office hours and work hard to communicate well with my students because an adjunct faculty is at an advantage in terms of their time on campus, and it's very important to reach out to the students and not just teach them, but engage in them. And so what PCC needs to do, I don't think the adjunct faculty is ever going to disappear. I think we're trying to strike an appropriate balance, balance the budget, and hire as many full-time as possible, but we will always have adjunct faculty. And we need to make sure that we communicate very effectively with them. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Lewis, you'll be first with this next question, which is one about your philosophy toward governing. As a board member, how will you ensure you are receiving input from all stakeholders and not just hearing from the administration's perspective?
Very easy. Exactly what I did as a student trustee, as I mentioned previously. It's our responsibility to reach out and sit in some of these meetings at all levels of shared governance. It's not enough, like I said earlier, just to hear it or see it on a piece of paper at a meeting. You have to actually go to these meetings and watch the process, watch what goes into it, watch the work, the discussion, the deliberation. So the short answer is go to the shared governance meetings myself, sit there and watch the deliberations so that I have a full grasp on the situation.
Mr. Thompson?
Can you repeat the question, please?
As a board member, how will you ensure that you are receiving input from all stakeholders and not just hearing from the administration's perspective? It has to do with your philosophy of being a board member.
Again, I think I have a record both here and before in my various activities in the community of being very willing to sit down with people, listen effectively and openly to what they have to say. I think, again, as you come to board meetings, as long as the discussion is civil, and we've had some incidents, unfortunately, in the last several months where that was not the case, but as long as that's the case, that's the way of doing it too. But certainly I'm available by telephone, my number is known, my email is known, etc. I have no qualms at all about sitting down and meeting with people. I've done that in the past here, and I'm very open to doing it again. And so I think that's the way to get information. You can attend shared governance groups as a board member, but you have to really sit there and listen because you do not take part in those discussions. That's not the level or the work of a board member. The board member works collectively with his or her colleagues as a board and work together at that level.
Mr. Enriquez?
Again, because of the Brown Act, I have participated by listening to the various groups on campus. I have, as I mentioned before, I've gone to the Council of Academic Affairs and Professional Matters of the Classified Senate, the Faculty Senate, and the Foundation. I listen to people. I hear the rumblings. And that's one way you improve the situation. Just by listening, hearing unfiltered points of view before it gets to the Board of Trustees. And in that manner, you go to the people, you go to the various constituencies of the college. And that's what I will continue to do. I, in fact, have sent many letters to the Board of Trustees concerning redistricting. I heard very few responses on that issue.
Mr. Selinsky?
I'm hearing a question of philosophy and how we will receive input, and I think it somewhat comes down to attitude. I think it comes down to having an openness to hear maybe things that are uncomfortable, confront the brutal facts, whatever the situation is, with always the interest of keeping the students in the forefront. And that's been my guiding principle in serving on the PUSD board. I think if you ask the PUSD staff, I think you'd find that they found me approachable. They found me to be a very effective listener. And I think, if anything, I'd want to look for as many opportunities as possible to be listening to community members, all the stakeholders who are here at the college, and colleagues on the board to receive that input. And that would be my approach.
Mr. Osterling, go ahead.
As I mentioned in my opening remarks, I currently serve on several corporate and civic boards, and my fellow board members and executives whom we direct will tell you that I very much believe in a collaborative decision-making process. I actively seek input from all points of view before a decision is made. I'm also a bit of a pest. People will find that will tell you that I'm polite, but I'm a very persistent board member. I demand good information. I ask lots of questions. Many times decisions are brought to the board, and if the information isn't sufficient, we ask them to go back and get more information so we can make a good informed decision. And I do my homework before I show up to the meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Hilsman?
Yes, well, there's a skill and a technique and an art to communication. I actually do this for a living as an author and an educator. What's very important is that you begin a conversation with all the stakeholders, that you have an outreach to people. It's not enough to sit back and hand out your phone number. You have to go to them, you have to go where people are, you have to listen, and you have to engage in a conversation with what's on their mind. So it's about being proactive. It's about reaching out and being a little bit more assertive, especially when we have the challenges that we're facing now, which the accreditation committee was very clear about. They said the problem here is that there's not a conversation going on. There's a lack of civility. There's not an engagement. There's not shared governance. There's not openness. The board has failed in that way. So it's important for the board in the future, with our new president, to step up and have that conversation on campus with all the stakeholders.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, you'll be the first for this question. This is about a similar subject, but with more specificity. How should the faculty and staff be included in the presidential evaluation process?
I'm completely in favor of having the entire campus and all of its groups take part in the evaluation. when you have a new president, superintendent coming in, you must allow, I think, some period of time. Currently, we do it for 3 years. You let that person settle in, get adjusted, acclimated, his or her style of leadership take place, etc. And then we have what we call the 360-degree evaluation for everybody on campus. We usually bring an outside person in to serve as a moderator for this, and everybody evaluates them. I'm open to perhaps moving it up a year, and having that be something we do during the 3rd year, rather than during the 4th year of that person's presidency. It's important. There's nothing to prevent people from coming to our board meetings or individually, as long as it's done civilly, and raising questions about something, whatever it may be. And certainly I have a record of taking that into consideration and bringing it to the board members in a board meeting is appropriate.
Mr. Enriquez?
I agree with Trustee Thomas. Evaluations do need to be from all parties, from above, below, and all around. You may call it participatory governance, or my preferred term, shared governance, is what I have believed in the last 20 or so years. Nonetheless, it needs to be input from all constituencies. As a president, we have a very good one, I believe. Dr. Verdeen, his vision is one that I can follow and support. So right now, we're in the honeymoon period. And all seems well, but he needs to be evaluated too. I would not have extended the contract of the previous president. That's why he was paid that $400,000. His contract had been extended.
Mr. Selinsky?
I think there needs to be multiple ways of looking at evaluation. There's the formal evaluation, which I believe should happen more frequently. We're looking 3 years out. I think a little sooner feedback would be critical for knowing where everybody thinks, how they feel, and where everyone stands. I also believe there's a lot of informal ways to structure feedback so people can give input into what they think is going right, what they think is going not the right direction, and that appropriate course corrections for the institution can be made in a timely manner. We're living in a very fast-paced environment. I think we need to think more innovatively how we work together and give feedback.
Mr. Osterling, your comments about evaluation.
PCC is a public institution. We absolutely should receive input from all constituents, the staff, the students, the faculty. The trustees are not on the campus on a daily basis, and everybody else that I mentioned is. And so their input and insights are extremely valuable because it's a much more frequent contact. I agree that the evaluation process needs to take place more frequently. This is a very important position running the institution, and an evaluation every 3 or 4 years is simply not frequently enough. Thank you.
Mr. Hilsman?
Yeah, well, I would just repeat the sentiments about the inclusion in the evaluation. And I'd also comment that we have a campus focus here today because we're on campus and we're thinking about the environment on campus. But PCC is a public institution. It's a community institution. It's a real jewel for the community. And I talk to voters about PCC, and they've been reading the papers and hearing about it. So we as trustees also have a duty to the wider community, and they're also stakeholders in this. They have a great interest. A lot of you have relatives who've been to PCC, grandparents or parents or cousins. And so this is a community institution. So that conversation I talked about earlier needs to include the whole city, the whole community. I can tell you there are a lot of elected officials who are rooting for you. Mayor Tornak has endorsed me, several city council members. They understand the problems and challenges facing PCC, and we're behind you in making a great school in the future.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes, ma'am, could you please reread the question?
Yes, we can finish up this question with, how should the faculty and staff be included in the presidential evaluation process?
So first of all, we should look at the fact that after a year, there's an evaluation period where we can say, well, it didn't work out, let's go our separate ways and terminate the contract. And I think it's more important, instead of waiting 3 years or even 2 years, I think it's important to have the staff, the faculty, and the administration even as part of that evaluative process. I think, well, let's be honest, we've seen that a president can single-handedly take a school from a happy, loving, thriving place to an argumentative place filled with turmoil and constant troubles on a day-to-day basis. That could have been prevented if we would have not only had an evaluative process that included our constituency groups, but listened to them when they talk to us.
Thank you. Mr. Enriquez, you'll be first for this next question. As a board member, what would you do to fix the problem of student retention? Currently, as the semester moves forward, students drop the class. Do you have ideas about how you would fix this problem?
It's a natural process. When people come in enthusiastic, and then for whatever circumstances they run into difficulty. It happens, it lessens the load for the professors, but it's a good thing that they come on campus. There are many programs here on campus that can help them out. You get financial aid, be the labs. They need to be identified. The student needs to point out the difficulty that they're in, but sometimes it's difficult for their first, second, and third semester. There's orientation classes for the college for new prospective students. They need to be aware of more use of the email telling them these programs exist.
Mr. Slinsky, what do you have to add?
I think the first question that comes to my mind is trying to understand why the students are not continuing on in their classes. And I can imagine several reasons. Certainly work, the need to work, the challenges of their personal life. Maybe they're new to college. And so one of the pieces that come to mind was how we can strengthen, have a more effective counseling system that really understands the students where they're at and how we can help chart a path, effective path through PCC and onto their career.
Mr. Osterling?
Student retention in any community college is a significant challenge, and of course we want to have more students finish and graduate and receive their AA degree or their vocational certificate, whatever they're trying to achieve, whichever they're trying to achieve. And we do have resources available, including student services and counseling. We have to make sure that those resources are made available to them. The other thing that we need to do, and it's difficult, is we have to figure out a way where a student can get a 2-year degree in 2 years. And one of the frustrations that faces PCC students and other community college students is the inability to get the classes they need to progress and achieve that degree in the minimum time frame required. And if we can do that, that will improve student retention.
Yes, and I agree. I think support, resources, counseling all helps. I think, as Jim pointed out, capacity is a big issue. Focusing on what the core classes are that you need for transfer. I also think preparation is very important for people who are coming to PCC. And I have to compliment Bill Thompson on his work with the program, the Pathways program for from high school students to PCC. I think that's terrifically important to prepare students in high school to coordinate the curriculum, and I know Bill has done good work on that. I don't want to be a complete naysayer about his efforts here, and I do want to give him a shout out on that program.
Mr. Lewis, what do you have to add?
Well, I think we start with data. We need to disaggregate the data and find out exactly why we're not retaining our students. There are a million different reasons, from paying their rent to transferring to you name it. And not everyone that we lose is an actual loss. There are students who transfer early or change their path and go get certifications, and these are not losses as far as retentions are concerned. So we need to disaggregate, and then we can start to formulate plans to attack these issues. Of course, it's important to have support services, and of course, it's kind of disheartening to know that you come to a community college and think 2 years and end up here for 3 or 4 years. But at the end of the day, we don't have a crystal ball, and without disaggregating the data, which actually, to my knowledge, hasn't been done, we can't answer this question.
Mr. Thompson?
Well, as has been mentioned, the Pathways program that we began a few years back with Pasadena Unified School District and have expanded into the Roseby District, it works very, very well. It's done a much better job of preparing students to come or for their arrival at Pasadena City College and be prepared to take college courses and do well in those courses. We've also begun a dual enrollment program with PUSD, by which students in high school can take PCC courses and get credit for them both in high school and at PCC. And this again is an incentive for people to come to PCC to be able to stay together and graduate or transfer, whichever is their goal. Counseling also is important. We've worked on that. We have more to do on that. But we are working hard on it, and we recognize that this is key to student success, and without that, there's really no reason for any of us to be here.
Mr. Selinsky, you will be first on this question. And I'm making an assumption that the questioner asked is talking about the accreditation recommendations when they say, of the 9 recommendations issued by the External Evaluation Committee, most are violations due to the actions or inactions of the board and college administration. What role will you play in addressing this?
As I studied the 9 recommendations, there seemed like there was several themes that jumped out. One was the behavior of leadership and creating an environment that is not as collaborative as the one that I would want to advocate for. So I think that's one. I think there was the other recommendation was the lack of filling permanent positions in leadership. And that had created some of the issues that we were seeing. I know there's been efforts to fill those. And then there was regular evaluation of staff and clarity of support for adjunct professors, especially around student learning outcomes. So these are ones that I would expect that the college is dealing with and would want to make sure that we deal with these in a rapid manner.
Mr. Osterling?
You want to repeat the question?
I could repeat the question. Of the 9 recommendations issued by the External Evaluation Committee, most are violations due to the actions or inactions of the board and the college administration. What role would you play in addressing this?
The probation letter that was, and report that was issued by the Accreditation Commission was very negative about PCC, and the bad news is that we're on probation. The The good news is that if we look at that, the 9 deficiencies that are cited, it's really a roadmap for how we get back to becoming the great institution that PCC has always been. So, number one, the board needs to conduct its affairs in an open and transparent manner. That's been cited again and again today. Number two, the administration positions that are not filled need to be filled. And number three, the various administrative controls over the academic process that were cited as being missing need to be reestablished. Thank you.
Mr. Hilsman.
Yes. So leadership is not just an abstraction. Leadership is a skill. Leadership is something that you practice every day when you're in a position of authority and trust. The recommendations are very clear, and what they're really saying is that you have to share governance. You have to have transparency. You have to have honesty. You have to have rules. You have to follow the rule of law. Those are just bottom line issues for any board. I think it's also important that the board have a vision of the kind of school that we want, the kind of college that we want in the future for PCC, and the kind of community that we're building. So that's really the essence of what leadership is. And unfortunately, that's the Board of Trustees for the past few years has not lived up to our expectations of leadership. So we need a new, I think what the accreditation committee is saying to us is we need to reevaluate what leadership means on this campus and the crucial role that the Board of Trustees has to play in the future to ensure that.
I think that what we got docked on for accreditation comes down to one very simple thing. And I said transparency earlier, but it's not enough to say transparency. It's about communication. It's about accepting the recommendations from shared governance. It all comes back to listening. Our climate on this campus, actually it's gotten better lately, but our climate on this campus in our recent past over these 3-4 years could have been completely avoided. And I am saying completely. Everything could have been avoided had the board just listened. That's all it would have taken. There were countless people who had countless comments to the board, letters to the board, telling them what was going on, what the problems were. All of this could have been prevented. Every violation that we've had by the Brown Act has been documented, has been said before any lawsuit was filed, any decision was made by a faculty or a student.
Mr. Thompson?
Well, again, it's easy to talk about these things. It's something else to do it. I think I've got a track record of listening to people. An example of that is the issue concerning Joe Perone, the women's basketball coach. We had an audience full of people that came to our board meetings talking about the penalty that he was given. I listened to that. I raised the question, and as a consequence of that, the administration then acted upon that, and it resulted in an amicable solution of the problem. In fact, I got a very nice email from Mr. Perone yesterday thanking me once again for taking that action. So, yes, we have to listen to people. We have to be willing to receive information. And again, it must be brought to us in a civil fashion. You cannot stand there and yell and scream and things like that and expect to get results. But I'm very much in favor of that. And again, I think we need to act upon things that are brought to our attention, evaluate the issues, evaluate our leadership. We're doing a great job right now, both Dr. Miller and Dr. Verdeen.
Would you
They've
please
gotten
add
off
that
to a
to
very
the
good
next
beginning
question?
for us.
Thank you. Mr. Enrique, can you finish this question for us?
Again, it's leadership. Leadership not just of the, thank you, Tom, and not just of the administration. Again, we have a brand new leader. I do not like the autocratic nature of the $400,000 man. He rejected the advice of various constituencies around campus. But we, these gentlemen and I, are part of that. This is why elections are important. This is why the Voting Rights Act, that is now 50 years old, is important. This is why the Constitution is important. There's the trustee lines have made the trustees to be continued.
Mr. Osterling, we now have a rather practical question. The chemistry and biology classes at PCC have been in temporary bungalows for 3 years and counting. What would you do to speed up the construction of a new science building to replace the U building?
One of the important things that the Board of Trustees are going to be working on and deciding on in the upcoming years is the new Centennial Master Plan. And that will guide our facilities for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. Master planning is a really interesting and fun exercise, but it's also very challenging because you're looking out into the future and trying to figure out what facilities we need to create today to provide for that future. And as I mentioned, I teach in the planning curriculum at USC and have a lot of experience at that. To answer the question that you have, there is some funds remaining in the current capital program. We can look and see, I don't know the specific answer to that, if funds can be allocated to that.
Well, I would take a similar approach, and when I'm elected, I look forward to learning more about that and seeing what we can do to improve the facilities. I did want to comment on Bill's talking about yelling and screaming. I mean, I think that if you are not having a conversation, if those who are in charge are not listening, you really have no choice but to stand up and voice your concerns loudly. I think that's part and parcel of an academic environment, and you can see where it's gone into the ditch when people are having to yell and scream to have their voices heard. So I would like to do everything I can to tone that down, but not by suppressing the expression or not listening, but by trying to engage a conversation with everybody about what their concerns are and building together a vision for our college.
The question was, the chemistry and biology classes at PCC have been in temporary bungalows for 3 years. What would you do to speed up constructing new buildings? So, address that first, please.
Oh, you're asking?
Mr. Lewis?
So having been part of Centennial Master Plans and bond measures, I can tell you that it's not as simple as having the money to take down the U building and build a building in place of it. It costs an enormous amount of money to properly take down the U building, millions of dollars. And that's not even counting, starting a blueprint for a new building. That's not anything to do with breaking ground. So there is no fund that we have hidden away where that can be done. That's going to be money from the state, and it's just not there right now. And it is something that's being addressed in every committee that can touch on this that I've been in. We do touch on it, and it's an ongoing conversation. And I'm sure that the minute there is something to be done, it will be.
Mr. Thompson?
I think Mr. Lewis's comments are right on target with respect to this. It's not the least bit inexpensive to either take down an existing building or to replace it with the construction of a new building. So yes, we recognize we need a science building, and we're trying to address that as part of our planning process for the future. But it's unlikely that the money to do something like that will come from the state. It may. It's more likely we have to go back to the public locally within our geographic area and ask them to pass a proposition to provide the money to be able to do things like that. And That doesn't happen overnight. You have to go through the process of laying the groundwork for that to get people ready to vote for it. Then you go forward with the campaign and make it happen. And I've got experience of doing that, and we look forward to continuing our planning process in the next 4 years and working to achieve this result, which certainly is needed.
Yes, you, I'm sorry, Mr. Enrique. Beg your pardon.
Well, I've seen temporary buildings in Hamilton, Jefferson, Madison elementary schools. And that temporary lasted 30, 40 years. So it's something we have to deal with. We have some very competent staff. I've heard the discussions for the new building, somewhere in the range of $70 to $100 million. Can be, is high up on the priority of the state for funding, of the top 10, I believe. Deals with utilization of buildings here on PCC. There's time to put classes in through the 1 p.m. through 6 p.m. There are things that the college can do to push us up on that priority list. And it's a bond issue that you will all be voting on. So I will give some thoughts and vote for it when it comes up.
Mr. Solinsky?
I chaired the facility committee over Passing Unified and lived the $465 million master plan, working to implement that. And I've learned that there is a sequence. Assuming we can obtain funding, which could be multiple sources, the state, local, potentially some grant funds. That's the first step that we have to problem solve, and figure out how to be able to get that resource in place to be able to move on the building. With that, with the staff and resources of this community, then the next step would be making sure we can probably have the plans in place, be ready to go once that funding is in place, and then work to implement this as soon as possible. We also have things out of our control, which is the Department of State Architect, which can, in my experience as Unified, slow us down further. But again, with advocacy and follow through, I think we can expedite some of the processes, and I would advocate that to happen as rapidly as possible.
Mr. Hilsman, there's interest in Veterans Affairs. The question is, are any of you veterans? And if you're not, what would you do to find out about the issues concerning veterans? And what would you do to better integrate our vets into college life?
Well, the first thing I do is talk to the gentleman on my left. Thank you, sir. It's Marshall Lewis. I understand there's a proposal for a facility here for support of veterans. I think that's a great idea. As we all know, veterans need our help and they need support, and they're a great asset to the community. Of course, it all comes down to resources and follow through. Hopefully, we can have that, have those resources, and have the ongoing support. So that's my view of how we can help out. Marshall.
Mr. Lewis, go ahead.
I am a veteran. Marine
You are a
Corps.
veteran?
I am a veteran of the Marine Corps. And as far as projects to help integrate veterans, I try to work closely to give back to the program that's helped me so much. We just had another successful camping trip as part of the veterans cohort, part of the Boots to Books program with Dr. Martin. And I try and have been successful in going every year to help them out with that. As far as other ways on the campus, we have been working tirelessly to get the proposed VA clinic right here on campus so that veterans don't have interruptions during their class schedules, which is our main problem. The other things are, we're doing a great job at veteran services as far as counseling goes and other support services with Patty Bjorns Martin and Carol Calandra and also the professors within the cohort create a community that fosters support.
Mr. Thompson?
Excuse me. I am also a veteran, not as recently as Mr. Lewis, but I'm a veteran. And in fact, I'm on the subcommittee of our board that's addressing the possibility of a Veterans Administration medical clinic on campus that Marshall Miller has referred to. And we're working very hard to make that happen. Unfortunately, working with the Veteran Administration has not been simple or straightforward. It's been like a revolving door with people and a few other challenges. I also currently serve as the chair of the city's Veterans Event Committee, and have been for the last 2 years. We will again this year. We will put on a performance in front of Pasadena City Hall on Veterans Day, November the 11th. And we've worked with Patty Orange Martin and Carol Calandra and Harold Martin to be a part of that. I think Marshall himself was with us this past year, so I have a very keen interest in making this happen, and very much open, very much wanting to make it happen, and we'll keep on working to achieve that.
Mr. Enriquez?
Many of my family have been in the Marines, the Navy, and my nephew in the Air Force. Their concerns are my concerns. The Veterans Center is located near the Aquatic Center. Again, these programs need to be, students need to know of them and I'll help them along. It's very important. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Swalinski.
I'm not a veteran. I believe I missed the lottery by like 5 days before the president canceled it. At the time, I was going to be signing up for the military. I do have great respect and concern for what the people who serve our country have gone through, and they deserve tremendous support. I've reached out to several veterans around this issue, as well as talked to Congresswoman Judy Chu, who has made this program for veterans a focus for her, and she wants this to be a national model here at the college. I've had several veterans in some of my classes that I've taught, and I'm always seeking to understand what they've experienced that could help them be more successful in school. And I would continue to do that, to strive to understand.
Mr. Osterling, you finish us up on this question, please.
I understand that there's approximately 600 veterans on the PCC campus, and we do owe a debt of gratitude to everybody that has served in the military, and especially at this time when so many people have seen active duty. And many of those veterans, even those that did not see combat, nonetheless still return with post-traumatic stress disorder. And so they have those added challenges in getting their education on top of all of the other challenges that we've already talked about that students face. So it is important that they not only that they receive the support services, whether it's counseling or whatever, to deal with those issues, and also to successfully complete their education. And we owe this debt of gratitude to the veterans. They've served the country, and we can't leave them behind. Thank you.
Well, there are several questions about pay, salaries and stipends, and I will ask this very specific question because I think you can answer it easily, starting with Mr. Lewis. A significant number of faculty are paid their salaries and their full salaries and stipends to do administrative work. They teach no classes or few classes. Do you think these hired to teach should be allowed to do so? How would you change the current pattern?
First of all, while I think there are times when this may be necessary, some sort of leadership roles required that our full-time faculty step out of the classroom for a brief period of time to do this. I do think there are a lot of instances on campus currently where we are overusing or abusing this. I do think, and I hope that faculty would agree with me, that full-time faculty are here to be in the classroom. And while I do appreciate them participating, and they do love to participate, there is seldom a call for a faculty member to have 100% release or even close to them.
Mr. Thompson?
Well, I think that this is an issue that certainly as individual board members, we have very little, if anything, to do with that. If it's something that's brought to the board as a policy change or prospective policy change, then we can certainly address that, consider it, and I would certainly be in favor of doing that. This is a part of the shared governance approach of the campus, and yes, we've had problems in recent times with that. In the last about 9 months of Dr. Miller's tenure as our interim superintendent president, and certainly the 3 months of Dr. Verdian, we're doing much better of that. So if that's an issue that needs to be considered, let's go through the shared governance process, come to the board, and we will at that point in time consider it openly, honestly, and make a decision.
Mr. Enriquez?
The question one more time.
The question is a very specific question about how faculty are paid. A significant number of faculty are paid their full salaries and stipends to do administrative work. They teach no classes or few classes. Do you think those hired to teach should be allowed to do so? How would you change the current pattern?
Release time is necessary for doing various positions. Mr. Cairo here did a wonderful job as the Faculty Senate President. Administrators, they have very generous salaries. I don't know. I do not make the salary schedule. I would defer. I would speak more to the president, superintendent, and other constituencies to figure that out. What is fair?
Mr. Selinsky?
I'd like to focus on understanding what drove the current situation to the fore. Based on the accreditation recommendation, it was fill permanent positions with permanent administrators, is what here is recommended. And if that is part of the solution to change this situation, that's what I would recommend, to make sure we continue to expedite our hiring process and get those administrative positions filled. I do understand organizational needs, and I know that there's times that there's a need for flexibility at times, but on an ongoing basis, I don't find that acceptable.
Mr. Osterling?
I'm an adjunct faculty. I love to teach. I love the occasions when you can light that spark in a student or many students for what I'm teaching them and the career that I'm in, and get them enthusiastic about that. PCC is not a four-year institution conferring graduate degrees and PhDs and engaging in research. PCC is and should be a teaching school. The teachers should be here to teach. They should be enthusiastic about it. They should love it. They should have that same passion and want to, and they do, to light that spark in the students. And we should hire administrators to conduct the administration. And we should get back into out of probation and not have those administrative positions unfilled.
Mr. Hilton?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's always, teachers and faculty are an incredible resource and a skilled teacher who really ought to be out of the classroom for even a minute. Skilled teachers, I know how tough it is. My wife's a teacher for 30 years, and I'm in awe of her. I also have a philosophical approach or feeling about administration, which is that administrative positions ought to produce. They ought to be justified. They ought to be, administration should be as streamlined as possible. So that's where my philosophical leaning is. I certainly understand the importance of administration and the need for it, but I think you have to be careful that you get too top-heavy with administration, particularly when you're pulling out teachers who are providing such inspiration, changing students' lives. And I think in that case, it's a mistake to yank somebody like that out of the classroom for whatever reason.
I'd like to tell you that there are several questions about campaign contributions, so I would advise you to be prepared to answer people who speak to you outside after about the campaign contributions. And for the last question, this is a philosophical question that is fast to do. I assume all of you believe that all PCC employees, staff, management, and faculty are equally important. As such, would you be in favor of giving all employees equal raises when it comes time to renew contracts? The questioner says yes or no answer only, but I know you find it difficult.
We can do that in under a minute.
Mr. Thompson, would you start, please?
Needs of people, not academically, but financially, and recognizing that our job is to make sure that they are compensated fairly. I think we've had, to my knowledge, I'm trying to remember, we really had very many battles over this type of thing. I think we've generally gone forward with the negotiated contracts and accepted those and put them in place. And so I would be very much in favor, as I always have been, of continuing with that process and working as a board member and the board as its entirety as a whole to achieve that result.
Mr. Thompson found it very difficult to answer yes or no. Mr. Enrique?
I'm a practiced lawyer after all. Yes or no.
That was a yes.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Mr. Enriquez?
You know, if you're earning 100,000 and you get a 2% increase, you only say it's 2%. But if you're earning 30,000, it's more significant to get a 4 or 5% increase. So let's recognize that teachers are higher paid. And yes, they need a cost of living, but the secretaries, the maintenance, they need an extra boost. So I tend to lean towards the lower paid positions. And,
Okay.
I would like to congratulate Mr. Roger Marheim and the Pasadena Association for reaching an agreement with Dr. Miller to have a contract. They went 3 years without one, and they bridged the chasm, as I told Mr. Miller.
Mr. Zelensky?
I think as mentioned before, I want to respect the bargaining process of each of these employee groups. I think when it comes to equal, I think historically most bargaining sessions do tend to result in equal raises in terms of percentage. But I know at Pasadena, if I did to deal with some equity issues for some of our lower paid employees that really we needed to not do equal because of some past inequities that need to be dealt with. So a blanket yes or no, it depends.
Depends, okay. Mr. Osterling?
That is a difficult yes or no question. We do exist here at PCC an environment where the labor contracts are negotiated with the different negotiating groups, and that's the environment that we're in, and I don't believe that that's going to change. And so, we can say that everybody should get exactly the same raise. We should say this group should get more, but I think we're going to continue with this negotiation share the comments that the prior speakers made. Pasadena and Southern California are very expensive cost of living because of the high cost of housing, etc. And I'm fortunate with the budget cutbacks that we have at the state level because of the state economy, that if I could have my way, everybody in this institution can and should earn much more money than they do to help be able to afford to live in this wonderful but expensive place. But we are in an era of budget constraints.
Mr. Hilsman?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
I think I'd echo the sentiments here. I do think that you can give lip service to this, but I actually think it's very important that you have an understanding and a leaning towards the importance of employees. I've been on boards of directors where we've lost talented people because we weren't compensating them well, we weren't treating them properly, and I think as soon as you get into a situation like that, your institution long-term is going to run into trouble. So just to repeat what I said before, yes.
Mr. Lewis, would you finish up this question?
For the sake of clarity, could you read the question again?
I assume all of you believe that all PCC employees, staff, management, and faculty are equally important. As such, would you be in favor of giving all employees equal raises when it comes time to renew contracts? Yes or no answer only.
Since they didn't follow that. but I will start by saying no. I don't think that it's so simplistic that you can say that all faculty, staff, administration, and employees should get a pay bump at the same time. We have a lot more difficult issues to look at, like our faculty having to negotiate for years to get their latest contract, and maybe they would agree, maybe they would disagree, or agree in private, that even now they're not getting the compensation that they should be getting in the times we live in the climate we're living in. And I'm sure if we looked at every single group, it would be the same sort of situation. But no, I don't see that it is as simplistic to pay bump everyone at the same time for the same reasons.
Well, we've spent 2 hours together and had a lot of information thrown at us. And now it's time for our closing comments. We will start at the other end this time. Mr. Thompson, 2-minute closing comments, please.
One of the things I really want to stress is that the board and certainly myself are working very effectively, work very hard with our faculty groups, students, and all the groups on campus. As I said before, Dr. Miller has done a good job at that. Dr. Radine has only been there 3 months, but he's off to a very good beginning working to address these issues, and that's extremely important. I think it's also, you have to be realistic a little bit here and understand that the board has a role to play in a lot of these things, but you can't simply take out the target and aim it at the board for all these things. That's an overly simplistic approach to things. So the main reason we're here is student success. I mean, education is the issue of our times, really, because as a nation we're slipping internationally from the top where we were down to about the middle third. PCC and other community colleges are a key part of addressing that, and we're doing a very good job effectively with it, as I said before. First in California for awarding degrees, first in California for awarding degrees to minority students and things like that. Student success, that's what we're here, that's what we're all about. And that's why I'm here, why I'm involved. Public education is my passion, and I believe very strongly in that. We provide intern opportunities with KPCC, and that's terrific. And so the people who are supporting me are people who are involved and who know PCC, Jack Scott, Jim Fossler, Jeanette Mann, Tony Fellow, Roland Brown, people like that. I think that's really important. That's why I want to stay involved with this college, because I believe passionately in public education. It is my passion, and that's very much what I want to continue doing for the next 4 years. And I will appreciate your support, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and spend some time with you this evening.
Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. So I'm not much on blanket statements or taglines. So I'd like to give you as many examples as I can in this 2-minute period. Let's start with the calendar. My year as a student trustee, I put in a lot of work in calendar committee, college council, side meetings and board meetings over the calendar issue. And the college overwhelmingly supported a calendar with winter. And when it came time to vote, although I was an advisory vote, I was the only one to support the shared governance decision to go back to a winter session. Also, when it comes to the case of the president, now don't hate me, Rajim Pradhan is a wonderful man, a wonderful president so far, and I fully support him, fully intend to support him when I'm elected. But I would like to point out that as hiring the new president is our most important job as being trustees, we fell short. We fell short in the area of listening to our constituency groups. I was the only trustee to go to every college for every candidate and interview every employee, every student. And I can tell you that the overwhelming support, I don't want to put him on the spot, but the overwhelming support was for Bob Miller. And I can't tell you how disheartening it is to know that his own school supported him. And he was the overwhelming choice. And we fell short. He put in the work. He turned the climate around. And the reason why we're moving forward progress right now with the faculty's contract with other relationships on campus is mainly due to Bob Miller. And as trustees, we should have taken the time, and we should have taken we really should have considered the input of the community. And that's exactly what the Board of Trustees needs now.
Mr. Hilsman.
Yes. So I have to agree with Bill Thompson about the importance of Pasadena City College, student success, the role of community colleges in our future. I mean, they really are our future for both academic and vocational education. They're the future for jobs. There's a lot of great things about community college, and there's a lot of great things about Pasadena City College. There always have been, there always will be in the future. Where I disagree with Bill is where he says that we cannot hold the Board of Trustees or Bill responsible or accountable for what's happened in the last few years. You know, the Board of Trustees are the governing authority of PCC. They hire and fire the president. They set the tone and the strategy for the future. You know, when it comes to PCC, the buck stops at the Board of Trustees. And you've seen the performance of the board over the last few years. I've talked about it. I hope I haven't been a broken record. I'm echoing, I think, a lot of the sentiments that you're seeing, not only on campus, among the candidates here, but around the community. And we know that the academic standards are great. We know that it's going to continue to be a great institution. We know that we're going to get past this probation. But we need some fresh, engaged voices on the board. I've had a lot of experience in boards of directors. I've seen where they turn into dysfunction when they get consumed with personalities or disputes, and this has to stop. We have to find a constructive path forward with the Board of Trustees, working with the new leadership, working with Bob Miller, who I've served on boards with before, so that we can really ensure that the real education and student success continues to happen here. We're a real asset and resource for the community, and we owe it to our city and to our college to really strive to do better. So thank you.
Mr. Osterlin? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your support. Thanks.
Mr. Osterlin.
Thank you once again to everybody for coming here, sitting through approximately 2 hours. Again, there's 6 answers to the same question. Thank you for putting up with my awkwardness as a rookie campaigner. I had a nice, well-rehearsed speech, closing speech that I had. I received a phone call at 4 o'clock today, and I decided to tear that up, and I'm just going to share a story with you. We know that the motto of Pasadena City College is student success. And I'd like to share a wonderful student success story with you. And this happened in my class at USC. At 4 o'clock today, I got a phone call from one of my top students. I'll just call him Brett for these purposes. He was asking me to give him a reference so that he could take what's called a progressive degree at USC, which means he undertakes undergrad courses and master's degree courses at the same time. He's one of the top students in my class. He's interested, he's involved. This is the kind of stuff that all of us teachers love to have. In order for him to do this, he had to share his background with me. He left John Muir High School. I didn't say graduated, I said he left with a 1.8 GPA. He came here to PCC. He received an AA with honors. And now he's at USC and he's succeeded, and he's one of thousands of PCC success stories that we all see and hear about every day. And this faculty here in this room, we create this success story. And there is a huge reservoir of goodwill that's built up in this community towards PCC. We all know how important of an institution is. We can restore PCC to the great, wonderful institution that it used to be. And we need the best board of trustees that we can possibly have to return to that, and I'm committed to doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Flansky.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. One of the things that, as I was reflecting on my thoughts tonight of what I'd like to share with you is reflecting on when I went to PCC. I typed my papers on an IBM Selectric typewriter that was self-correcting, thankfully. And also, I think about what's in the palm of my hand that used to fill an entire room several decades ago. Our environment has changed, and I think we need to think about how we are going to help transform education to meet this challenging environment. The other thought I wanted to share with you, or ask you a question, if I had a chance to meet with your son or daughter and talk to them about their interests, their skills, their passions, and afterwards I came to you and said, hey, they make a great electrician, how would you respond? Some favorably, some maybe not so favorably. But you know what? Electricians have jobs now. Electricians have opportunities to grow their career and can continue to become an electrical engineer. It doesn't have to slow down. It's that layering idea of education that I think I'm hearing as a philosophy, and I'd like to advocate for that. I'd like to restore and build PCC's reputation as a global leader in student success. I have a proven record in business, in education, and as a community leader. And the results, if you look at my record, that resulted in organizational growth and improvement. There are opportunities and challenges that we need to face in a collaborative manner, in open and blunt conversations, but most of all, with deep, empathetic listening. With that collaborative spirit, I'd like to bring all my team together to serve as your trustee. And I thank you again for this opportunity.
Mr. Enriquez.
Tom, send me down memory lane. When all the activity happened here, I had hair. I got it. Oh yes, a beautiful afro. The change of leadership is important. That's why I became involved. I stuffed envelopes for Dr. Mann through the ACT office. I was part of the steering committee of Mrs. Mealy. They came to the board. They did bring a fresh perspective 32 years ago. It has to be more malleable. Anyway, Pasadena City College is the crown jewel of the city of Pasadena and the Pasadena Area Community College District. We should treat it as such. That means good employee relations. For a happy employee makes for a productive employee. Be one staff, department secretary, administrative assistant, groundskeeper, facilities maintenance, or adjunct, or full-time faculty. You and I are together in this. The well-being of our community is in our hands. Various points can be settled by reasonable people. Vigorous discussion, sometimes it's necessary and proper. Your happiness is my happiness. Treating each other well. We do not need to cherish one another or adore one another, but if we see the dignity and worth of each and every one of us and treat one another with respect, one day we can be good neighbors. Perhaps in the days that follow, we could be good allies. Good night. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for expressing your concerns. Thank you for your involvement. Thank you for adding to the good fortune, the good found here in this marketplace of ideas, the neutral ground of higher learning, the center of social interaction among the surrounding communities of Arcadia, La Cañada, Flintridge, Altadena, East Pasadena, Rosemead, El Monte, Temple City. And I believe in America in the way of life. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, weren't they terrific? Now you can start. Please do take advantage of meeting the candidates outside, where you can also take home with you some of their campaign literature. We do not allow it inside. And get voter registration forms if you think that there's anybody in your life who's not registered to vote. And when is election day? November